In this video, we're going to learn how to add and subtract unlike fractions. We're going to use our skill from yesterday on how to find least common denominator and write like fractions to help us with this lesson. So if we want to add 3/8 plus 1/4, we're going to have to find the least common denominator for eighths and fourths, write like fractions, and then we will be able to add them. So if we look at our denominators, 8 and 4, we're going to start with the larger denominator, which is 8, and we will list its multiples until we find one that 4 can go into evenly. The first multiple of 8 is 8. If you want to list your multiples, you can list them either off on scratch paper or in a margin. In this case, I'm just going to list them up here. The first multiple of 8 is 8, and we ask, can 4 go into 8 evenly? Yes, it can, so 8 would be our least common denominator. Here in 3/8, if the denominator stayed 8, the numerator is going to stay a 3. So 3/8 equals 3/8. But here, in order to change fourths into eighths, we would have to multiply by 2 because 4 times 2 gives us 8. If we multiply the denominator by 2, we have to multiply the numerator by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Then we can add the fractions since they now have the same denominator. 3/8 plus 2/8 would be 5/8. Then we have to ask ourselves when we're finished, is this an improper fraction? It's not, and then we have to see if it can be reduced. There's nothing that can go into both 5 and 8 evenly, so 5/8 would be the reduced answer. If we move into the next example, 1/3 plus 4/18. We have to find the least common denominator so we can write like fractions. We start with the higher denominator, 18, and we list its multiples until we find something that 3 can go into evenly. The first multiple of 18 is 18. 3 can go into 18 evenly, so 18 is the least common denominator. In 1/3, we know that 3 times 6 would give us 18, so that means we have to multiply the numerator by 6. 1 times 6 is 6. In 4/18, the denominator is going to stay the same, so that means the numerator also stays the same. So now we can add 6/18 plus 4/18 gives us 10/18. Then we have to see if this sum is an improper fraction. It's not an improper fraction. Then we have to see if it can be reduced. Since 2 can go into both 10 and 18, we have to reduce it down to 5/9. When we get to 5/9, there's nothing that we can divide both 5 and 9 by, so 5/9 would be the reduced simplified answer. In the next example, we have 1/2 plus 5/9. Again, the denominators are different, so first thing we'll do is find the least common denominator. We will list the multiples of 9 until we find something that 2 can go into evenly. First multiple of 9 is 9. 2 cannot go into 9 evenly. 9 times 2 is 18. So we see if 2 can go into 18 evenly, and it can, so 18 is the least common denominator. Now to write the like fractions, we have to multiply. 2 times 9 would give us 18, so that means we have to multiply the numerator times 9. So 1/2 would equal 9/18. In 5/9, 9 times 2 is 18, so we have to multiply the numerator 5 by 2 to get 10. Then we can add 9/18 plus 10/18 would give us 19/18. Then we ask, is it improper? Is this fraction improper? And yes, it is. The numerator is too large. So we will divide 18 into 19. You can either do that in scratch paper or you can do it mentally. 18 goes into 19 one time. The remainder would be 1/18. 1/18 cannot be reduced, so 1 and 1/18 would be your answer. We will follow these same kind of steps when we subtract unlike fractions. The first thing we'll do is find the least common denominator. The higher denominator is 12, so we're going to list the multiples of 12 until we find something 4 can go into. 12 times 1 is 12. 4 can go into 12 evenly, so 12 is the least common denominator. In 5/12, the denominator stays the same, so the numerator will stay the same. In 1/4, 4 times 3 would give us 12, so we have to multiply 1 times 3 to get 3/12. We're subtracting this time, so we subtract 5 minus 3 to get 2/12. Then we have to see, is this an improper fraction? No, it's not improper. Then we have to ask ourselves if it can be reduced. Since 2 can go into both 2 and 12, we will divide the numerator and denominator both by 2 to get 1/6. 1/6 is in simplest form, so that's our final answer. Next we have 5/6 minus 4/8. We have to find common denominators. We start with the higher denominator, 8. Now, if you start with 6, you're still going to find the least common denominator. It's just going to take you a little longer than if you start with 8. The first multiple of 8 is 8, but 6 can't go into 8 evenly. 8 times 2 is 16. 6 cannot go into 16 evenly. 8 times 3 is 24. 6 can go into 24 evenly, so 24 will be our least common denominator. Here we go. 6 times 4 gives us 24. 5 times 4 gives us 20. 8 times 3 is 24. 4 times 3 is 12. So we can subtract 20 minus 12 would give us 8/24. And we have to make sure this is not improper. 8/24 is not an improper fraction. Then we have to see if it can be reduced. And 8 can go into both 8 and 24, so we have to reduce it, and we get 1/3. Now let's say you got to this point and you thought they could both be divided by 2, or that they could both be divided by 4. You would be correct in both of these. If you chose 2, you would get 4/12, but from there you would have to either keep reducing by 2, or you could have reduced by 4 on this step here to get 1/3. The point is, you need to keep reducing until there's nothing else to divide the numerator and denominator by evenly. So in any of these different situations, you can see you're going to end up with 1/3. It doesn't matter how many times it takes you to get the simplified answer, you just have to keep simplifying until you get the most reduced answer. Our last example here, we have 5/7 minus 2/3. We need to find the least common denominator for 7 and 3. So we list the multiples of 7. 3 cannot go into 7 evenly, so we go to 7 times 2, which is 14. 3 cannot go into 14 evenly. 7 times 3 is 21. 3 can go into 21 evenly, so 21 is the least common denominator. 7 times 3 gives us 21, so 5 times 3 would give us 15. 3 times 7 is 21. So 2 times 7 would give us 14. We're subtracting. 15 minus 14 is 1/21. It's not improper, and that cannot be reduced. So 1/21 is the final answer.